You ever just be chillin', scrolling through YouTube like any other day, when suddenly it hits you? Politics! Oh no, not my comfort streamer. Why, I am honored to have that title. Thank you, thank you. Ahem. Hello everyone, Glacier here. Been a while since I've uploaded a video, huh? Don't worry, don't worry. I'm not turning into a politics channel, hopefully. This is just an assignment of mine that I figured would be fun to discuss with all of you. Now you get to suffer with me. Wait, no, where are you going? Don't leave. So, GlacierGam, you silly guy, what is this wacky and fun assignment you have to do? I'm so glad you asked. This assignment is meant to be us covering an issue over a variety of news outlets and analyzing the different ways the issue is framed in said outlets. I'm gonna be explaining what I mean by framing after I explain politics briefly for our non-American or simply uninformed viewers. This is going to be a brief explanation on how politics works, so don't expect anything too detailed for this. Politics is a lot like a Splatoon Splatfest, except specifically Splatoon 1 and 2 because a third party always gets absorbed into the bigger one. If this gets outdated, let me know. But it consists of two main groups, the Democrats and the Republicans, going head to head to see who can achieve the most votes and support in order to find out who the next president of the USA is going to be. The president's the person who gets blamed for every problem in the country at once. They're also the head of the executive branch and hold 1/3 of the power in government, but that's a little too complex for this video, so we'll just leave it at the problem thing. Moving on! I always get this definition slightly twisted, but framing is effectively the way that a topic is covered in a story. It comes in all shapes and forms and will usually try to persuade the viewer into agreeing with that frame or to simply try and get the viewer to notice and understand the frame. Framing is an extremely valuable and powerful tool when used correctly. Knowledge is power, after all. Speaking of framing, in order to do a frame, you need a topic for the story, which brings me into what we'll be talking about today. The topic we'll be covering is global warming. Oh wow, the ice guy's talking about global warming. Who would have seen that coming? Okay, yes, the obvious is obvious. But, in my defense, it is an environmental-based topic, and I've been on an environmentalist kick due to another class, and what do you say we start discussing some articles now? Grab a snack, folks. We've got 8 of these to go through. First, let's discuss this article I found on CBS News titled Acclaimed Photographer Details Decline of Mantanoba's Polar Bear Population, written by one Aaron Hassansde. Apologies if I'm butchering that. It even comes with a video, too. It's at this point that I should mention that this article and the future articles will be linked in the description, and the Discord server as well. You should join. The title really says it all. The polar bear population has been decreasing in the Mantanoba area, going down from roughly 1,200 to about 620 in total, halving the population in 30 years. The story states that the reason is likely because of the ice melting, which takes away places for polar bears to hunt and also limits the habitat area for them. Admittedly, this story isn't framed in a way that works for me. It's not bad per se, but it's not exactly where I'd want the focus to be. As the story's frame feels like it's more focused on the polar bear population decreasing affecting tourism than the effects on the bears themselves, putting more focus on the fact that the bears and people of Churchill are still captivating people from across the globe, and how they hope that won't change instead of the lasting issues facing these bears. It's definitely an interesting perspective to take, the frame, and one that I don't necessarily think is the highest priority, but it's not a bad frame either. It puts focus on the people and how the bears support them. Strangely, the story doesn't really offer any steps to a solution. It effectively just says, I hope things don't get worse, which yeah, me too. But it almost feels underwhelming. It doesn't help us take any steps towards actually fixing things for the poor bears. I mean, look at them. How can you not want to help them? Don't waste your breath telling me how dangerous they are. I am extremely biased. That frame just felt weak and unfulfilling, despite including the best animal ever. We didn't even get any connections to my class that I could make. We can do better. Alright, before we delve into this next article, I must say, things might get heated and a bit more controversial in certain articles. We're seeing things from all over the political spectrum, and people can get pretty heated here. I'm looking to view these from a mostly neutral perspective, so let's try to keep things civil in the comments, alright folks? Don't force my hand. This next article was written by one Audrey Conklin on Fox News. Side tangent, I love foxes. I mean, like, look at them, they're so precious and goofy, and they laugh maniacally to show affection, and they even have a snow form, like... Ahem. My apologies, I appear to have gotten sidetracked. Where were we? Ah, yes. This article discusses Princeton University getting its funding removed due to not aligning with NOAA's primary objectives, or the Trump administration's priorities. If you've been in the political sphere a little bit, you may be quick to assume that this is Doge's doing, and to an extent you would be right, but these concerns from schools and universities of having their funding cut seems to have been stemming back from October 2023. Interesting. The article talks about what this means for different groups. Going from least on topic to most on topic, we have the news that this will lower taxes a little, so that's nice. This will also cut, however, the funding that Princeton University put towards research that has contributed to ocean and atmosphere-based models, as well as research on the overall global climate that's just not being funded anymore. There's a counterclaim in the paragraph saying that the university's results were exaggerated and implausible, and that they only contributed to climate anxiety, which is the fear that people get over climate change. Some of the people in the article are claiming that this climate anxiety is unnecessary and overblown. I don't know, I think the polar bears would disrespectfully disagree, to be honest. The article is framed very well as an informative piece. It doesn't pick any side, and the only goal it has is to inform the reader, which can be easily confirmed by the polarization in the comments, which, going off topic for a moment, so many of these comments are just insane. If you can read accidental rage bait without getting upset, I highly recommend going to any sort of political topic and just reading the comments. These people are hilarious when they disagree. But the article itself really feels like a true neutral. How kind of it. I am contractually obligated to make connections to class topics and certain policies, court cases, proposals, etc. So let's do some of those. Take a seat, class. No, you can't go to the restroom. Sit back down. Firstly, for a policy is the obvious. What happened at Princeton University aligns quite well with Doge's motives. Doge's whole goal is to cut funding deemed as unimportant that the government spends. And frankly, to be honest, Doge has done a decent amount of good stuff when it comes to that. But at the same time, it feels like a lot of the cuts Doge makes aren't thought through much and just end up hurting people in the long run. I've seen just as much actual useless spending be cut as spending that's put towards preventing natural disasters and, fittingly for us, global warming prevention be cut. Doge has been extremely hit or miss as of now, and I'm both hopeful that it can be better targeted and also rightfully worried that it won't be. Now for a class topic, let's bring up my favorite part of Doge, the public protest. Falling under the First Amendment's protection of speech, public protests are perfectly legal and acceptable to do as long as they aren't actively causing or encouraging violence. Remember to protest safely, protesters. But also, don't get in people's way, please. That just makes people upset. Then they won't care about whatever message you're sending. So I'm really excited to talk about our next article, except it's not an article. This video is on ABC News, titled Our Home, Local Action and Global Impact, credited to one Ginger Z. If you have the spare 6 minutes to view this, I highly recommend it. I won't be able to cover it as cleanly as the actual news video does. It's the third link in the description. Watch it and come back if you must. We good now? Alright. This video discusses something interesting being produced by the University of Maine's Advanced Structures and Composite Center, and I gotta say, this is some impressive stuff. They've managed to produce houses that come with all the modern furnishings, live up to Maine's housing requirements, and can survive Maine's intense weather, including its snowstorms. And the interesting part? These houses are 3D printed, made from wood scraps from sawmills and resin from corn. These 3D printed houses are 100% reusable too. They can be built within the insanely quick span of a week. It'll take longer to move in than to actually build the thing. But Connor, what does this have to do with global warming again? Allow me to inform you if you haven't picked up on it yet. Normal building construction can release harmful greenhouse gases that plague the atmosphere and heat the earth. In addition, a lot of the resources used for normal construction are hard to break down and reuse. Overall, house construction is a necessary evil. We can't leave people without homes, but it hurts the environment. But not anymore! These new 3D printed houses are quicker to put together, significantly better for the environment, reusable, and cheaper? The only con to these houses is the fact that they might put some construction jobs out of service if they become mainstream. I hate to sound rude in any way, but I feel like looking at the bigger picture, that it's a worthy price to pay. And hopefully new jobs would open up that would replace the ones consumed. It's also worth mentioning the construction complex is built in South Florida. Made from glass fibers, resin, and stone, these 96-unit complexes are much better for the environment than their more traditional counterparts, and are constructed over the course of 8 weeks. That's 96 housing areas in 8 weeks. It almost feels like magic. This frame is definitely meant to make you excited for this advent technology. It discusses so many pros and doesn't even bring up a con for them. I mean, I even went as far to include the main con I can think of, which they purposely didn't. Heck, they even kinda bashed on the construction industry for a while. I mean, they had valid points, but didn't bring up much good for them either. There is a course concept that I can loosely connect this to. This being the powers of the president and also the unitary executive theory. I'm going to explain both of these, and honestly it's more for me than you. Firstly, let's talk about the powers. The president gets certain powers just for starting tariffs. It's all coming together. The tariffs are meant to encourage factories and producing in general from within the United States, and as much as bigger factories are unlikely to be constructed during this time, I feel like the materials needed for these 3D printed houses are all readily available within the US. Unlike the many ordinary construction materials that might be needed to be imported. Another pro for these 3D houses, although the machines themselves might need some foreign materials. A half pro for these 3D houses. I have more course concepts. Buckle in. No, you still can't go to the bathroom. This will be on the test. So, these 3D printed houses follow Maine's housing requirements, but what are those requirements? Well, I'm sorry, but if you expected me to add another 23 pages condensed into this video, then I'm afraid your beliefs will be crushed. If you must know everything, I'll add it in the description. Besides, the rules themselves aren't important here, not as much as who actually made them. Maine Housing is an independent state agency. This connects to federalism. Federalism is essentially the different powers given to each different version of government. The largest, national government, the middle ground, state government, and the lowest tier, local government. Maine Housing falls under a state-level government policy, which means what qualifies as good housing in Maine is different from what qualifies in a different state like New York. Back to the point. I really think these houses could help with climate change, meaning we finally hit something that actually contributes to solving our main issue. A wonderful change of pace. Let's see if we can keep this momentum going in Piece 4. Wow, that took a while. From the science of technology to the science of culinary, here's another way people are dealing with some of the consequences of global warming. Welcome to the marshes of Duxbury, Massachusetts, where the waters are plagued with the invasive green crab. These malicious aquatic miscreants have all the horrible qualities that make an effective invasive species. They have no natural predators, can eat most of what resides around them, and produce over 185,000 eggs a year. The only thing that controlled their population before was the winter season, making the waters too cold for them. So yeah, that is happening now. Enter a report on CBS News done by a Jacob Wyckoff, featuring the minds of Jeff Ladd and Sharon St. Howers. That name might be wrong. The captions read it as unintelligible. Jeff and Sharon figured that there had to be something they could do in order to try and stop the population of green crabs from growing too large, and they came up with a delicious solution. Jeff goes out into the marshes and fishes up thousands of pounds of these guys, and then Sharon turns these crabs into a broth. This supposedly delicious broth can then be given to seafood joints anywhere, where it can be sold to the people. In an ideal world, this can lead to a huge demand for this broth, and with an even larger supply, it's a good mix to actually getting this crab problem slightly under control. However, there is also a chance that if this broth doesn't take off, that the problem just won't be dealt with. I have hopes though that it'll be extremely well received. mainly because the environmentalist in me is also an optimist. Fighting an invasive species to the degree as the green crab can be difficult without any sort of monetary input. Turning the species into a delicious dish is a great way to get that money. That hopeful view is the frame this video is using. It wants you to have this high hope for the success of this green crab broth. On that note, I'm hungry. Enjoy this ad while I go get a snack.
Look, I get it. You're tired of Among Us. It's the same thing. Pretty much get crewmate, do some tasks, and then die in electrical. Boring, right? Well, that's why I've decided to play modded Among Us with a new map, new cosmetics, new abilities, and new roles. My personal favorite is the Jester. React as suspicious as possible to get voted out and win the game. Or the Janitor, where you can clean up dead bodies your fellow imposter left behind. If you want to join in on the fun, send me a message on Discord.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I got distracted by foxes. Fox News, Part 2. What's this article and or video about? Oh. I guess we had to be controversial at some point, didn't we? Thank you, Louis Cassiano, for discussing this climate-themed crime. This article discusses a protester who goes directly to a plaque in Trump Tower and spray paints over it, talking about how they, the government, are killing the planet. Perhaps I wasn't clear enough with my protest-themed instructions earlier. No causing harm, no encouraging harm, no getting in people's way to ruin the message, and no vandalism of private property. Look, I can get it. Sometimes it feels like the peaceful protest life doesn't do anything. But violence only leads to more violence. But this protester, whom I will not name, is just painting a bad image for climate change. I'm aware that this is a hot take, but breaking the law seems counterproductive to our cause of trying to fix the state of the world. I honestly don't even really want to keep talking about this one, because it's just not something I want to cover. I want my protesters to be the type of people that are willing to stand for their cause without actively causing problems, not vandalism. I'm not saying that violence isn't necessary at points, but this just feels like it was done without being thought through. Let's get back on topic. This article's frame feels very vague. I feel like I gave a more detailed frame than it did. The article just speaks like it's a report. It's very matter-of-fact in its text, and the video provided from it is just someone's phone. It just feels like the frame is the title exactly, which I guess makes it informative, so there's nothing wrong with that, but I have nothing more to add to it. This is the last Fox article on the list, so it's a shame to end it on something so lackluster for the assignment. Oh well, what you gonna do? Next! The next video from ABC News was made on the most recent Earth Day. It was brought to us by someone. Yeah, the description and video itself don't actually say who this individual is, unfortunately, but the video will be linked in the description with the others. Maybe one of you will recognize her. This video discusses a bunch of numbers related to the climate, including global temperature change, countries that follow the World Health Organization's air quality guidelines, tons of plastic pollution, and also food waste and how that can be remedied with composting. The video also urges the viewers to simply plant a tree in order to provide more oxygen and create more things to absorb carbon dioxide from the air. And then the video talks about how beautiful nature can be. The video ends with the line, "The planet has an amazing ability to heal itself. We just need to give it a little help," which is just such a wonderful closing line. And it definitely shows the frame of this article well. This article is framed as a status update for the world and a call for help. I agree with the points provided here. Not everyone might have access to a composter, and those who live in the city may not exactly have room for a tree. But for those of us who do have access to these resources, these small steps could have a big impact if other people start participating in them. We have the ability to help the planet back for all it's done for us. Alright, let's get back to pointing fingers. We love pointing fingers. I love blaming people for things. Back on the most reliable and helpful news site I've been using, CBS, we have a news article written by... Seriously? Again? Why do these articles have no author? This article's written by someone on the CBS News team. The article goes into detail about the main contributors to global warming and how much they've contributed from the burning of fossil fuels. A research effort done by the researchers from Dartmouth College reveals the top contributors of global warming, at least via greenhouse gas emissions, and aims to hold these companies responsible for their emissions. The researchers were even able to identify how much greenhouse gas was equal to damages in global heat increases, the conversion rate being, for every 1% of greenhouse gas, there is $502 billion in heat damages done to the world. Wait, that's like a lot. Like a scarily large amount. The researchers were also able to find the top 5 biggest contributors and how much money they're responsible for causing in heat damages. And that's a lot of money. A horrid amount of money. The money that isn't even caused by other extreme weathers such as natural disasters isn't even included in this count. The researchers were able to determine that the pollution caused by Chevron has raised the Earth's temperature by 0.45 degrees Fahrenheit. With some rough calculations, I can round every bit of the top 5 contributors' population to about 1.7 degrees. By using this research, people are able to cut off any excuse of blame shifting by pointing out exactly who was responsible for what. There's hopes that due to these scientific results that certain liability lawsuits against the carbon emitters may end up being successful instead of being denied. The article closes by saying that there's a whole list of other variables that make the estimates recorded here a likely underestimate of the damages these companies have actually caused. How even more frightening. The framing of this article is quite clear. From the specific numbers and names, we can tell the article wants to put a face to the global greenhouse gas emissions. It's even said in the article that we can actually trace harm back to major emitters now, very clearly showing blame. That's the frame of it. It's framed in a way to give the reader a reason to be upset with these companies, and to give numbers to hopefully be able to take action with. For our final story today, we are once again returning to ABC News with another report titled, How Rock Dust is Used to Fertilize Farms, Cleans the Air. That grammar isn't exactly perfect, but whatever. It's brought to us by Ginger Z. That's good news. Last time she brought us a report, we actually had something of substance. As mentioned in the title, the report talks about rock dust. The Sun Rock Quarry, located in North Carolina, has certain rocks that absorb the carbon out of the atmosphere through a process called rock weathering. This process starts when rain absorbs the air's carbon dioxide while falling. It'll then land on volcanic rock, forming a new substance called bicarbonate. Then that carbon-infested substance washes out into the sea, where it forms into pretty seashells. Sounds great, right? Nature's own way of getting carbon out of the atmosphere, which will end up slowing the warming of the planet? Yeah, small problem. This process can take thousands to millions of years. Not exactly effective time management skills on the planet, and that's coming from me. That's where co-founder of Lithos Carbon, Mary Yap, steps in. She and her team have found a way to speed up this process through a rather distinct method compared to seashellification. Mary and Lithos discovered that this carbon absorption process was just as, if not more effective, when using small, almost dust-like versions of these rocks, and just having that dust spread over fields. This process can be done much quicker than the natural rock weathering, so the ever-creative minds of science named this process enhanced rock weathering. I'm just glad it was that and not some fancy name with 15 syllables. But you might be thinking of 3 big problems that I'll go over quickly. Firstly is, where are all these rocks coming from? That Sun Rock Quarry I mentioned earlier is just one example of many quarries that have been sending all of the rock quote-unquote waste they've been collecting over the years to mountain-sized piles of the stuff. Safe to say we have more than enough of these rocks around. Second problem, where are we putting this rock dust? We can't just dump it into random fields. Well, that's where the second odd effect of these rocks comes into play. These rocks make great fertilizer. I'm not entirely sure how this was found out, but certain farmers actually take truckloads of these rocks to spread out over their own crop fields, so we've got the supply and the demand. But what about the cost? Everything has a price, and these rocks are no different. But as of now, the cost of this enhanced rock weathering practice is being paid for by big companies that actually contribute to the amount of carbon in the air in the first place. What a nice way of tying the last story to this one. Though it's possible that eventually there will need to be a new way to acquire funds. Mary Yap believes that this practice could go worldwide eventually due to how easy the process is. Rocks and fields aren't exactly too hard to come by after all. Now to discuss the last frame of this video, and it's actually a repeated frame. This article is meant to inspire some excitement for the technology, just like the 3D printed houses from earlier. It even follows the same process of listing a whole bunch of pros without really listing any sort of con for them whatsoever. Curious that Miss Z also wrote this one. Perhaps it's a style of hers. Well folks, it looks like we've managed to get through all 8 sources. Yay, confetti! And I do believe that I've hit all the marks that I needed to hit. Hopefully. So, that was the first episode of a new series I might be doing. Chilly Chats. It's still a big work in progress, of course, with it possibly just getting cancelled altogether. But if you guys want to listen to this old iceberg yap about random topics that I enjoy, game-related, this will be the heaviest of the episodes that I can foresee, then let me know. Already could think of a few games I could talk about for a long while, so if you want to see more of this, yeah, tell me. And if you want to see more things of mine, then go join the Discord, also in the description. And I suppose I'll see you all later. Have a wonderful day, night, afternoon, evening, or whatever time of day you're having, and I'll catch you later. And to my professor, please don't dox me here. Bye everyone!